to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here, and today we have another guest lineup for you. We have Austin Davis. And if you're watching us on the screen, we're going to have his details on the ticker down below. If you're listening to us on radio, guess what? You're in for a treat. We have an amazing book that we're going to be discussing. Also, we're going to be hitting on what he does professionally. But just so you know, My Kid, My Crisis is the book that we're going to be discussing today. You can get it. It's available. But man, he's a visionary leader. He's been doing a lot of great things professionally. He is the CEO of Clearfork Academy. It's the premier teen treatment center in Texas. First and foremost, I know you're always on the go. Austin, thank you for being here. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a good day.
I appreciate you being on. A lot of things are happening in your world. You're not just a nationally recognized thought leader, but you also are an expert when it comes to teen mental health, addiction, recovery, and family restoration. So I'll let you do the honors. Tell us a little bit about your professional background and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, man, about 15 years ago, I was sitting in a seminary doing a master's in divinity, and kind of had this moment of I guess, clarity or not clarity, to where I abandoned that degree and went and got a master's in counseling, just because I was working with teenagers in local church. And, you know, when they have an issue, we're not exegeting out of Romans to help their issues. I'm asking them questions. And so that skill set and giftedness was just real evident. And so I started pursuing that professionally. And so got my master's in counseling, started working in some psych hospitals and public mental health. And, about 7-8 years ago now, started Clearfork Academy. And so kind of get to marry those two callings, that youth pastor thing and that clinical, put those two things together. And, the idea of Clearfork is we're just standing at the crossroads of these kids' lives. They're struggling with mental health and substance use. And so we get to help get them on the right track.
Well, you believe everyone has a story, everyone has a path in their life. When you're specifically putting your attention towards teens, what are some of the things that you've been able to learn about how their behavior shifts? And if so, how they can benefit from, them and their parents can benefit from reading this book as well?
Yeah, I think, in the book, we just kind of narrated some stories that I've seen over the last 15 years of families that are in crisis. And, I think identity is the crux of that. And the title of the book really came from when I was 30 years old and my wife, we found out we were pregnant. And I just had this, oh crap moment of, I'm going to be a dad. My life and profession is helping kids and families. And, and now my whole identity has changed. I'm not just an athlete, not just a musician. I'm going to be a dad. And what all the fears and doubts and worries. And it was literally a moment of identity crisis for me. And so these families that we work with, our kids walk through our doors, and they're really trying to answer that one question: who am I? Who in the world am I? Am I just fill in the blank, right? All the things, all the identities that they lay on themselves or pretend to be. And so we help sort that out.
With your personal journey as a parent, have you ever felt that you were alone during that whole journey, or at least a chapter in that journey? And if so, how have you used the book to kind of not just illustrate your piece in that part, but how people can overcome that?
Yeah, I tell my kids and my team, pretty much anybody, I live by this mantra of, man, you're the sum of the 5 people that you hang around. And so that was that part of that crisis is like my buddies that we went to the gym with, those switched over to my buddies that were pushing strollers on Saturday morning, So community is the key, I think, in any venue in life, and especially in, recovery. Families come in feeling really, really, really isolated. And when we put them in a room with 20 or 30 other people, and somebody starts talking, and then somebody on the other side of the circle goes, "Oh my God, I thought I was the only one." And then 5 other people say the same thing. And so like we really stress community and connectivity. Because any new venture in life, I think one of the first emotions that we experience is like, I'm the only one, like that isolation, and nobody gets it. And but when you start to ask, there's hundreds of people who've crossed that bridge before or climbed that mountain.
And for professionals, those like yourself, you have a full calendar. You got a lot of things that you had to hit day in, day out. What are some systems or approaches that you discuss in the book that can help people with professional careers and demanding schedules to navigate this whole journey?
I'll go back to community a little bit. So as an entrepreneur and professional, I'm a part of a global organization called Entrepreneurs Organization. And there's a local chapter here in Fort Worth, and there's 100 of us. And then there's like a small group that I hang out with every Tuesday for like 4 hours. And so we share thoughts and struggles and wins and all the things. So I think having a set of goals, whether in an entrepreneurial setting or in a family setting, you can't be a ship without a sail or a rudder. So I think as a family who is in crisis, the end goal is like be better or whatever that is, right? But that's Z. You got to figure out what E, D, F, T, whatever, all those, there's 100 little steps before the end goal. And goal setting and goal planning and being sort of predictive with your actions will make you really successful, I think.
Once again, you listen to Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our guest today, Austin Davis. You can go to his website. His website is right below, but if you're listening on radio, it's clearforkacademy.com. We're talking about his book that you should get. I have a copy. Thanks to his team, I have a copy. We'll have that information in the show notes. But when you think about the process of mental health and substance issues as a community, what are some ways that we can provide safer spaces for young people who may be dealing with such things?
We'll take it in kind of concentric circles. I think ultimately the parents or caregivers have to build relationship with that teenager. Socratic questions or motivational interviewing is a part of that skill set. And, so you pick the kiddo up from school and you ask, how was your day? They're going to reply, good, bad, right? So learning to ask questions like, hey, was there a moment during the day that you felt fear? Was there a moment in the day that you had excitement? Is there a particular person that you trust? What gave you butterflies in your stomach today? Something that lends itself to emotion, to a narrative and a conversation that brings connectivity. And so those conversations take time. It's learning how to communicate. And so I think that's that first circle. And then you go outside from that, coaches, teachers, youth pastors, those sort of organizational pillars throughout the community. I think people can have those same kind of conversations with kids and using those same skill sets and getting to build rapport. I know my coaches growing up were vital in me processing adolescents, just sitting in their office, connecting with them, instead of sitting in the back of the bus on a 2-hour bus ride, it was sitting up to the coach and, talking to him, and then youth pastors. And then when I got into undergrad and grad school, it was sitting in professor's office, I always go back to me and Dr. Effler, or some of the other professors that were just formative in my life. And that was two parts. It was me willing to sit in the office and feel awkward, and it was them putting down their tasks and to-do lists to invest in me. So I think it's that the home, and then those surrounding folks.
And that's the key, what you said about investing. When we invest our time, it makes a world difference. When we say, you know what, despite what my schedule looks like, I'm going to just clear it for this moment, because you never know when that moment can ever come again. And I always think of life in that snapshot. Always dive into that moment while you have it, because if you don't, not to quote 8 Mile, but if you lose this opportunity and let it slip, it's going to be great for good, man. So as you deal with not just young people, youth, but also parents, talk about grace, because a lot of times parents, they can be overwhelmed with what's going on, in their household and out in the world. How can parents extend grace for themselves and not be too, harsh on judgmental if they're doing good enough?
Yeah. There's kind of this saying of in AA and then different support group settings, you didn't cause it and you can't solve it, right? Or you can't fix it. And so I think parents, it's this paradox or double-edged sword, because I'm a family systems guy. And so I really believe that the family has a lot to do with the outcomes, right? Either positive or negative. And I think, if you have healthy rules, healthy expectations, and the family system is healthy, there shouldn't be any shame, right? It's they ultimately have done their best, and the kiddo has agency and sort of free will and can make decisions for their own lives, right? We all have seen the studies of the twins. One grows up to be a CEO and one lives on the street, right? They have the same DNA, they have the same kind of parental environment. So I think there's it's kind of a both and conversation with responsibility, and I think that's a healthier word than blame or sort of abdication or ignorance, like turning a blind eye. And so I think responsibility is a healthy way. Like, I was responsible with the things that I was given, and my kid made his own choice.
When you think about the power of faith and recovery, that is something that is a very special moment once, like you talk about responsibility, when a person decides that they're actually going to start applying what is being shared with them. Because it's one thing to have great information, but it's a whole different ball game when you actually start applying that information. It doesn't matter if you're an amateur, because guess what? We all are amateurs. But the whole point is, how are we recovering that process and growing? What has been your experience like looking through that lens?
Looking through the faith lens? Yeah. I can't unsee that. I have the permanent rose-colored glasses. I did 4 years of undergrad in pastoral ministries, and then went to seminary for 3 years. So faith is integral for me personally, and integrated into our recovery process. And so I think AA has been successful in the recovery community because of that. I mean, step one is my life's unmanageable, right? Step 2 is there's somebody out there. Step 3, I'm going to commit my will and my life to that higher power or being, right? And so I think that in itself, the element of surrender, helps other people be successful, right? And so I like to take that a little bit further and give it less nebulous definitions, right? It's Jesus, it's the Bible, it's Christian community. And I think you look at longevity studies and the people who live to 100 years old, Community is huge, and faith community specifically is a key identifier in most of those research projects. And so we see that in recovery with mental health and substance use as well. And so I think it helps answer that question of who am I in a definitive way sometimes.
When you look at access to academic knowledge plus ministry experience, how does that also combine in creating systems for these young people? Because a lot of times we have society that's just going to give them all kinds of resources, but there's some better options.
Trying to reframe that question in my mind. Like, so how does academics and faith kind of fit together? Is that what you're thinking? Sometimes they don't, and so they're at juxtaposition. And I think this is a familial responsibility that families have to have goals, right? And have like family values. And if those academic or social pressures, I'll call them, are against what the home believes, right? I think the family needs to step in and say, hey, look, like, I'll expose you to that to a certain degree, but you have to reframe it. You have to, if you want to curate that narrative for your family, you have to be really diligent at it. And I mean, I have 3 kids, 8, 10, and 12, and we homeschool for that reason, because we want to curate that narrative. We want to shape their minds and indoctrinate them in a certain way, and not let, the world, right? We'll use air quotes there, the world, to shape their worldview.
And a quick follow-up on that, when you see how they do have options, they can have the scroll effect and just scroll for days and let that be their babysitter. Yeah. How do you try to just keep intact that you want them to make their own decisions, but at the same time, you want to kind of help guide them to pay attention what's really going on? Because if you're not careful, you just get caught up in things you shouldn't be caught up in.
Yeah, the digital addiction stuff is huge, right? We don't allow that in our treatment center. We fight against it with our employees. So it is definitely attached to everyone today. And so I think, again, what is the goal? What is the family value and narrative? And you set filters and guardrails, both physical and relational. And so having some rules around it, like, we don't bring our phones to the dinner table. My wife and I, our kids aren't going to have phones probably forever if I can keep it, because we know that's addictive, it's harmful. The science is available and there to prove, it's not just I'm making stuff up. It's there, and it's ruining the dopamine centers of this generation.
Once again, listen to Refocused Radio and watching us online. Talking to our guest today, Austin Davis. You can go to his website, clearforkacademy.com. My next question for you is, when you look at mental health, is almost like a buzzword now. A lot more people are being open about it. A lot more people are talking about it. But when it comes to mental health from a standpoint of prevention and from reaction, what are some ways that we can help shift how people look at mental health when it comes to prevention and reacting to it?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a buzzword, right? And we think mental health is a negative connotation in some way. When I was growing up, depression wasn't the word. It was like I felt kind of down, or I felt blue, is how my mom called it, right? Like it's a gloomy day out, you don't feel like getting out of bed, or what, So I think we've added some words or some definitions in our society, and the key thing is like we all have this array of emotion. It is very normal to have ups and downs and arrays of emotion. What I think this generation where we're at now is they're owning those emotions. They say, I am anxious, I am depressed. And it's really it's a misnomer. They're taking on an identity when it's really a state, right? It's a state of mind at that moment, right? And so I'm feeling anxious, and we help our kids all the time reframe this. I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling afraid. No, so that's very different. That's a time and place. There's bookends to that statement, and not the concrete, perpetual "I am depressed." That goes on forever. And so we help our kids reframe that. I think the narrative in our communities should adopt that, right? And it's not healthy for the long term for us to continue to own these negative emotions, right? And reframe them, right? It's okay to have that emotion. Doesn't mean that you are, because that's where suicide comes in, right? If you say I am depressed, I am anxious, I am lonely, man, life is hopeless at that point. And I think that's where that cycle continues, and it gets out of control, and people give up.
Earlier, you mentioned about there are chapters in our lives where we have to adjust our circles, from the dad's hitting the gym to the dad's pushing the stroller. So on that point, we look at how parents are watching the kids grow, and they're going to start having different opinions and different outlooks on life. What are some ways that they can maybe slow down and say, you know what, how can we catch this thing that I'm seeing? You know, maybe they're seeing a dark cloud and they want to just do it in a way where they're not being their best friend, but they're not being their worst enemy. How have you been able to deal with that as a parent?
I think family rhythms are very important. It's Friday, and today we're going to do breakfast for dinner and watch a movie with our kids. We do that regularly. You know, we have Saturday morning family fitness time. So we get on our bikes and we go ride, or we work in the yard, or you know, like we have these family rhythms. And I think families that have good rhythms naturally solve problems together in those moments. When it's always chaos, it's always going to and from, there's very limited predictability. And my kids are small right now. And so like that predictability gets harder and harder as they get older, because I have less control, and they have more autonomy. And so it's just that balance and knowing how to navigate that. But you have to start early with those conversations, and build that rapport and build that trust, and have those rhythms that and when something goes bad, the rhythm's off, right? It's, as a musician, if the drummer's not with it, man, you gotta yell at him, and turn up that click track or whatever it is to get everybody back in sync. And so families are that way too. So I think creating rhythms is very important.
I like how you put that, because the first thing I thought about when you were saying that was the word drift. And I feel like a lot of times when we take our eyes off the North Star, so to speak, we end up drifting away from what is keeping us glued together, or at least what keeps us at peace at night. So, and our closing thoughts and wrapping this up is, when you see parents trying their best to make it great for their kids, and in a sense of values and a sense of what is that North Star for you, those principles, however they illustrated for their kids, what would you say to parents that feel like their kids are drifting and they just want to try their best to instill them the valuable things that's going to benefit them when they get older?
Yeah, when there's drifting happening, I've had 1,000 conversations with a kid and the parents, usually a dad and a son, and I'm the third party sitting there, and it'll be something silly. I'll just use shoelaces for an example, and I'll say, "Hey, John, you need to tie your tennis shoes. You're gonna fall. You're gonna trip. You're gonna fall. That's not safe." And the kid goes, "Oh my gosh, Mr. Austin, you're absolutely right. I'm gonna tie my shoes immediately." And the dad looks at the kid and goes, "I can't believe you just listened to him. I've been telling you that same thing for 15 years of your life. And this stranger walks up and says, tie your tennis shoes, and you do it immediately." And so there's just something about that consultant or the evangelist or the third party, the uncle, who is able to take a third party outside perspective and give insight. And so I would say to parents, man, don't think you have to live in a closed system when there's drift. Ask for help. Ask for help early. Ask for help often. I'm sitting here today because the ability to ask for help from other people. Very simple.
Well, once again, you've been listening to Refocused Radio and watching us online. Make sure you go get a copy of this book. I'm telling you, it's going to be in the show notes, and I hope you all will find some value in it. And I hope it continues to grow and the word gets out, because I see you getting a lot of great reviews, and that is key. That you have struck on something, you hit some nerve, so that's a good thing. So once again, like always, for you, Austin, I want to say thank you for your time, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.